Happy 4th of July, mad world. Scrolling through my Facebook, I see a very interesting post from Dominic Stansel, and he's being funny, trying to be funny. And it says, I want to make this clear. If you're from NC and you got to fight for Fight Lab, Spartyka, or Bull City Brawl, I don't like that you got that experience of those shows and you're old as dirt. A lot of misspelling in the post, but nonetheless, I got the point. And being a coach who has trained fighters who fought in those three events, I felt like, I could say a few words about how good those shows really were. The competition, if I look at Spartyka, Nick Grady, Mike Pagano, Frankie Mercado, Damon Blackshear, they were all champions on the amateur level in that show in Virginia. Spartyka was the amateur show in Virginia. I think that Strikeoff was the pro show in Virginia, had Ricky Saxton fight on that show. I think the difference in VA is the line is so thin between pro rules and amateur rules that the only thing that separates them is really the time limit. But the quality of fighter and athlete across the board is always there. And but if I had to, give it a measure, I would say Spartyka at the time that it existed had the best production of just about anybody, because they would get that Old Dominion Coliseum auditorium, whatever you want to call it. That place was huge, and they could fill it, and they could make it look like like a WWE event on TV. So I give them credit for that. Bull City Brawl, let's see, champions Ricky Saxton and James Quigg are the two that come to mind that I trained. There was a fighter who I didn't train who had a lasting impact on me from Bull City Brawl named James McNeil. Taught me a lot of lessons about how to treat fighters and look at things from the fighter's perspective. That's another story for another time. But, really good talent. I think Bull City Brawl was really the first show, ran by Billy Dowie and Jason Culbreth. They did a lot in terms of bringing in tough competition for your guys. And a small venue, mainly out of that Durham Armory, really exciting in a small, compact area. Good production, because it did level up. You go from the bottom to a balcony. So, had really good in-house production. Never saw a lot of the streaming. You would see some videos on the back end. Because I knew those guys, I had a lot of freedom. So my perspective is different from other people who didn't get to move around. And, so I had a lot of freedom to move around and talk to fighters and get to know a lot of the athletes. But like I said, one of the top things about Bull City Brawl that stands out is that you got tough competition coming in automatically, no easy fights, no days off. And they gave everybody a chance to fight and everybody a chance to win. Even if you had two newbies matched up, it was still touch and go to see how those fights would go. They weren't a bunch of first round finishes, and if they were, the other guy had just as much chance as the other his opponent. So that kind of stands out as a characteristic of Bull City Brawl. It really was a brawl, and you had to fight your way through it. But there were other shows, honorable mentions that existed at the same time as all these shows, that date back that we can't ignore. And I think that's a discussion for another time. But a lot of these shows, King of Jacksonville was around at the same time that Bull City Brawl, and a lot of the competitors traded back and forth with these shows. There was a lot more competitors back then. Fight Lab, I'm a bit partial to Fight Lab just because you had a more balance of pro and amateur fights on the card. Ricky Saxton, Paris Artist, Isaiah Monroe, Jesse Herzog, four of the champions that I got to train and win titles on those shows. When Dewan Owens won his first and only title, it was a pro title, and I'm proud to say that I got to help him for his camp. So I love Fight Lab in that regard, that it's a delicate balance of pros and amateurs. And you look at the guys who fought on that show and where have they gone. Keith Rockstar Richardson has fought in Bellator. He's killing it right now with the bare knuckle boxing. Tony Loco Soto, he's killing it right now with the bare knuckle boxing. James J. Brown, he's killing it, beating up UFC veterans and bare knuckle boxing. Let's keep going. Devon Blackshear, he's in the UFC. Impa Kasagani, former UFC vet over in the PFL. Brian Battle, Ultimate Fighter winner. Ricky Rainey, former Bellator fighter and UFC fighter. So, a lot of talent, has come through Fight Lab.